Thanks everybody for joining us today. We're super excited to have this amazing program and video put together by Ari Sherwin, Tim Robertson, Chad Zimmerman, and Steve Chuknik. And also special thanks to Dr. Martin in the Q&A discussion after our video. To give a little bit of a background on him. He's been involved with Maccabi USA since 2013, serving as a lead physician at every competition since the 19th Maccabi. He served as the general chairman of the 2018 Maccabi Youth Games and is the chair of the Maccabi USA Medical Advisory Committee. He will also be serving as the chair for all of the safety and medical for the Maccabi World Union at the 21st Maccabi in 2022. But outside of serving on the medical team, Dr. Bacall served as the Open Women's Soccer Chair at the 2015 and 2019 European Maccabi Games. Mark, it's all yours.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you to Ari, Tim, Steve, and Chad for putting this great program together. I'm going to introduce Ari. He's going to show a video, which is, I've already watched it. It's fantastic, talking about strength, conditioning, fitness, injury prevention, and nutrition. Ari is a national weightlifting champion of Israel, presently an attorney. He's involved in USA weightlifting and competed in the 1999 World Weightlifting Championships in Athens. So, Ari, I'll let you take over and continue the program. Thank you.
Glad to, Mark. Thank you very much. And Steve, thank you for coordinating this entire program. Excited to be here today, along with Chad Zimmerman and Steve Chuknik, and possibly Tim Robertson. He has a family commitment, and hopefully he'll be able to join us during the Q&A, but if not, Chad and I will be handling the questions and comments after the video. As Mark mentioned, I used to compete in the sport of Olympic-style weightlifting, and I had a chance to represent the United States as a member of the national team at the Olympic Training Center for a couple of years, and then competed internationally representing Israel at the 99 World Championships, and did so without using any drugs. And we may even touch upon that topic later on. But my grandmother always wanted me to be a surgeon, so I met her halfway and eventually made it to law school. And as Mark mentioned, I'm an intellectual property attorney, and I help athletes and other folks and corporate representatives protect their intellectual property with patents and trademarks. So with that being said, I'd like to quickly introduce Tim Robertson. I don't know if he's on, but Tim has trained amateur athletes, professional athletes, including LeBron James, Julian Edelman, Ben Simmons, the list goes on and on. He is owner of Speed Strength Systems based here in Chesterland, Ohio. He's the head strength and conditioning coach at John Carroll. Also joining us is Chad Zimmerman. Chad has worked with athletes for over a decade and is a college All-American in football when he attended Carnegie Mellon. Steve Chuknik was our videographer. He currently works as the content marketing manager for the Jewish Federation of Cleveland and was a social media specialist for the state of Maryland. So if Chad and Steve would just like to say a couple of comments before we roll the video, please do so.
Sure, this is Chad here. So thank you, everybody, and thanks for the intro, Ari. As you mentioned, I was a collegiate football player, American football for any of the international folks here. And then afterwards started a company called Stack, which was a information source, a media company for athletes, where we worked with LeBron and Derek Jeter and Peyton Manning and various other Olympic athletes, providing safe and effective drug-free training and nutrition information, and built that up over 12 years and created tens of thousands of pieces of content to educate athletes all in drug-free ways. So happy to be here and answer questions later after the video.
So, hi, this is Steve. So I do video work, still photography, editing, digital editing for the Jewish Federation. I've been doing editing for about 20 to 25 years, somewhere in TV, movies, along the way. This was just such a fun project to put together, and I learned a lot of stuff. Even I'm not too much into the weightlifting yet, but I definitely learned some tips just even putting it together. I look forward to having you guys watch this and learn a ton.
And Tim is here.
Yeah,
You want to say something?
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm Tim Robertson. I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I own Speed Strength Systems, and also I'm the strength coach at John Carroll. Happy to be a part of this.
All right, thanks guys. Give me 1 second while I share my screen, and Ari, I'll ask you just to confirm once we're playing to make sure the video is operating and we can hear it.
Terrific. All right, looks good. I think we're rolling.
Oh, I just gotta hit that we can hear my audio. Okay, should be good in a second.
Hello, I'm Ari Sherwin with Sport Tech, and today I'll be working with Tim Robertson, providing you with some training tips relating to our COVID-19 pandemic and giving you suggestions in terms of what you can do at home or in your gym relating to strength and conditioning, speed, general nutrition, and even some tips relating to nutrition at the end. During the day, I'm an intellectual property lawyer, but I also help out athletes with their training and with their branding and protecting their inventions. I also want to say that if you are working with a coach, in no way are we suggesting that you ignore what you're being told. We're simply offering some suggestions and modifications to what you're already doing in terms of incorporating these ideas into your fitness regimen, whether you're a teenager, in your 30s, or a master's athlete.
Hello, my name is Tim Robertson Jr. I'm the owner of Speed Strength Systems here in Cleveland, Ohio. I've been a strength and conditioning coach for over 25 years, working with athletes from young athletes, 8-year-olds, up through professional athletes into recreational athletes. My specialty is helping athletes become better through proper strength, power, speed development, and also a lot of injury prevention methods. In addition to owning Speed Strength, I'm the head strength and conditioning coach at John Carroll University, working with all their athletes at John Carroll. Look forward to working with you, helping you here, complement what you're doing with your training to get you ready.
Okay, let's start off with our first exercise, the power clean. And if there's one exercise, if you had to choose anything, if you were limited on time, it wouldn't be the squat, it wouldn't be the bench press, it wouldn't be the curl, it would be the power clean if you wanted to develop explosive power and quick strength. Athletes like Usain Bolt in track and field, Serena Williams in tennis, and Maya Moore in basketball are using this exercise to develop explosive power. And it's a terrific exercise as long as it's done properly. The 2 tips I'm going to suggest, the first 2 tips in this presentation are keeping your elbows up and then whipping your arms through. And I'll demonstrate that using an empty bar. First of all, the object of the power clean is simply to take the bar from the floor and raise it to your shoulders. And done with, of course, proper technique. And as soon as you have that technique learned, to do it as quickly and explosively as possible. And I'll demonstrate. And again, the 2 tips being that you want to keep the bar close. And in order to keep the bar close, you need to pull the elbows up, not back, because you'll see that as soon as you start to pull your elbows back, the bar gets away from your body. Elbows up, and then whipping your arms quickly as possible to rack the weight. And when you rack the weight, you want to rest the bar on 3 points. And if you do it properly, you don't even have to hold on to the bar. The 3 points being your 2 shoulders and your sternum. For the Paralympic athletes out there, you can do a version of the power clean in a seated position, whether it's in a chair or in a wheelchair, using dumbbells. Simply sit in the chair with an erect position, upper body, and if you like, you can even scoot off so half of your buttock region is actually off of the seat. Grab a pair of dumbbells, and weight is not important. First of all, technique most most importantly, weight will count. And starting with a slight dip, raise the dumbbells to the top of your shoulders, keeping them as close to your body as possible. Now we're going to talk about plyometrics, and a lot of people have heard about plyometrics and being all the rage now, but they've been in existence for decades. I was first taught plyometrics at the U.S. Olympic Training Center when I trained in Colorado Springs for a couple of years as a member of the national junior team, but they were around for decades before then. It was back in the 1950s when the Russians and the Eastern European athletes were using explosive jumping exercises to develop more speed and raw power in whatever sport they were in. And essentially the basis of plyometrics is that we have two types of muscle fibers: the fast twitch white fibers that are responsible for explosive events like the shot put and the long jump, and then slow twitch red fibers that are involved with providing oxygen during endurance stamina events like long distance cycling, long distance swimming. But what plyometrics come into play really are with the intermediate fibers that, if trained properly, can be converted to fast twitch. And this is the reason for doing these types of explosive lower body movements, which Tim Robertson will be demonstrating.
In strength and conditioning, plyometrics are used all the time to help develop power and speed. There are many, many different variations of plyometrics. The ones that we're going to show you right now is a simple box jump. Now, doing a box jump is not just haphazardly jumping on a box. There's certain technique things that you want to follow. One, you get your feet set, shoulder width apart. You take a counter movement down and jump on a box. What we like to say is try to push through the ground as fast as you can and as hard as you can and land as soft as you can. Technique is extremely important in doing plyometrics for maximizing your use here, but also helping prevent overuse and injuries. Three common mistakes with plyometric jumping are what happens with your feet and your knees. Often they cave in, they buckle in, like that. You want to keep the knees right over the shoes. We like to say right over the shoelaces when you go down in the descent and the ascent. The second one is rounding of the back. So when you come down into this position, often people want to round their back. You want to maintain a proper spinal alignment to the hip. And then the third one is the landing, where people might want to land on their toes or the knees buckle in with the feet caving in. Those are three common mistakes with plyometric box jumps.
Following up on Tim's number 4 tip, using box jumps to develop explosive power through plyometric training, another variation is simply using something as simple as a broomstick to hold behind your body and forcing yourself to isolate the lower body and not using your arms as momentum to develop the initial leaping motion. And this is something, if you want explosive power like Cristiano Ronaldo in soccer or gymnast Simone Biles, something to consider doing.
Okay, this is tip number 6. Going next to the lower body plyometric, this is more of an upper body ballistic plyometric movement. What you need is a med ball. This is a 12-pound ball. It can range anywhere from 3 to 30 pounds. It really doesn't matter. So I'm going to show you 2 different options here. One, if you do not have a cinder block in your basement or outside, this is a good option for you. What it is a bent over med ball press into the ground. So what you do is you bend over, good spinal alignment, bend to the knees, bend to the hips, and you're going to press into the ground as hard as you can, maintaining a nice controlled upper body. The alternative to that, if you do have a cinder block wall, not a drywall. This is the option for you here. Okay, what you're gonna do is you're gonna stand feet shoulder width apart, nice athletic position, bent at the knee and the hip, and you're gonna press into the wall as hard as you can, let it rebound back.
Our seventh tip takes us to a Paralympic version of ballistics. If you want to develop explosive power like swimmer Robert Griswold or runner very young, this is something you can do.
There's two general components that we're going to look at here with an upper body partner press. One is absorbing the weight, the med ball, but also quickly releasing the weight. And those are two foundational components of plyometric training, the concentric and eccentric components. You want to make sure you maximize both of those. Okay, another option for an upper body plyometric ballistic type movement, if you do not have a med ball, is a push-up, a plyometric push-up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a regular push-up and just basically jump off the floor. Here you're in a regular push-up position, body nice and rigid. You're going to descend down in a push-up and jump up. Okay, there's a lot of misconceptions and common errors with push-ups, not to mention with a plyometric push-up, which is more advanced. Some of them include hip positioning, shoulder positioning, neck positioning. So what often happens is this. The hips go down, but the upper body doesn't go down. The other one is vice versa, where your upper body is going down, but the hips don't go down. You want to be straight ahead with the head, spine, and pelvis throughout this whole exercise. So this is the right way to do it.
To piggyback Tim's demonstration of the plyometric push-up, an advanced plyometric push-up you can do is adding a clap or even two. The same exact motion, except you're launching yourself even higher so that you can literally clap your hands mid-air before you catch yourself in the eccentric position.
Okay, tip number 10. Now we're stepping into injury prevention or injury reduction. With any training, there's always the risk of potential injuries. So everything that we do to help athletes get better is also done to help prevent issues from occurring. Here we're going to go over an upper body exercise. I call them line walks with your hands, which is a great way to build stability and strength to support that structure of the shoulder. Often this is used as a pre-workout exercise to help warm your shoulders up and get you ready for your lift or other exercises that follow. Here you're in the push-up position, hands are stacked underneath your shoulders, and basically your whole body is locked in, and you're going to just step up, up, back, back. You can use a line or an imaginary line.
Still dealing with injury prevention, and this tip will relate to Romanian deadlift. And the Romanian deadlift is named so because it was invented by Romanian athletes. And when I had a chance to compete at the 1999 World Championships in Athens, Greece, I met with two Romanian Olympians, Nicu Vlad and Dragomir Soroslin, who instructed me on some of the vital issues to take into consideration when you do the Romanian deadlift. But tip number 13 is just keeping the bar close to your body as possible. And for the Romanian deadlift, you're working essentially your hamstrings and the largest muscle in your body in terms of volume and surface area, and that's the glutes. And if you can strengthen the glutes, you'll have less of a likelihood of developing an injury. After the shoulders, lower back injuries are very common amongst a lot of athletes. And what you do is, to begin the exercise, you will grab the bar using your legs and lower back. But once you stand up to actually begin the Romanian deadlift, you switch from the lower back to using only your glutes and your hamstrings, keeping the bar close to your body and keeping your knees bent just slightly. Stand up, and then just barely bending your knees, you slide the bar, keeping it in contact close to the body. As you go down to below your knee, and stand right back up. Keeping your back concave, your head straight.
Tip number 14 are isometrics. Isometric contractions are basically, in simple terms, where there is no lengthening or shortening of muscle contraction, holding against a fixed object. Several examples we're going to show you. We'll begin with a band pull apart. So the band, I am pulling this apart as hard as I can. I can't go any further, and the band can't be stretched any further. I'm holding that position. You want to make sure you breathe throughout. You can hold it for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. It's a great way to complement your normal training, or if you don't have access to resources of certain equipment, it's a great way you can help build strength with really nothing. Another option for an isometric, which requires no equipment other than a wall, is a wall push. Here I'm going to get my body set up, good positioning, and I'm basically pushing against the wall. I'm trying to move this wall. Now we all know the wall is not going to move, so you can get a lot of strength from your shoulders to your core pushing into the wall. There's no lengthening or shortening of that muscle, and that's what an isometric contraction is. Here's a variation of an isometric movement for a para-athlete. Here we're going to do a pressing action, but also a rowing action as 2 separate exercises. So you loop the band around the chair, have partner grab the band, and basically he's going to press out like a bench press or a push-up. He's going to lock in that position, hold that position, use good breathing throughout the movement, maybe 5, 10, 15 seconds, and then you relax. The next variation is a rowing action. Your partner's going to take the band, I'm going to hold it, and he is going to row and hold that contraction. So we're not moving in any direction, breathing throughout the motion. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax.
Now that we're finished demonstrating some strength, speed exercises along with plyometrics and ballistics and injury prevention movements, Tim and I want to discuss some of the finer points relating to nutrition, because the old adage, you are what you eat, is very true. And we'll touch upon the best things you can do pre, mid, and post-workout. In terms of having something to eat before working out, a lot of people think of getting some quick sugar into their body so that they're revved up. The problem with that is your body will crash, and you want to consider eating a food that's on the lower end of the glycemic index. Foods that will slowly release their energy to provide you with constant flows of glucose throughout your workout. And the best example is that of an apple. An apple has so many terrific qualities. It's a low glycemic food. It has soluble fiber. The pectin in apples lowers your bad cholesterol, the LDL. It has polyphenols, which has antioxidant effects and really helps a lot of the endurance and stamina related athletes. Tim, I'm just curious, in your 25 years of training athletes, what's one of the most common mistakes you see with young people coming into the gym before working out?
I think two things. One, dehydration, and number two is not coming in with anything in your stomach, not eating breakfast or anything prior to lifting or running, and you're basically working on an empty tank. That doesn't mean you go out and eat a full 5-course breakfast or a meal to disrupt your gastric GI tract, but you need to have something in your body to stimulate your blood sugar to help you sustain your energy throughout working out.
And I'd just also like to add that being an attorney, I want to add a little legal disclaimer here. It's imperative that you consult with a registered dietitian or a doctor, especially if you have any medical conditions or food allergies, and want to consider having something that suits your exact situation and condition. In terms of what you should eat or not eat, drink or not drink, in the middle of your workout, the best thing is still water. Water is the best thing you can take into your body pre, mid, or post. But in terms of having some other snacks in there, depending upon the length of a workout, you may want to consider an orange, a banana, or even pistachios or cashews. Foods with a glycemic index in the middle level that will give you a little jolt of glucose and help to modulate your sugar levels. But again, it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Exactly. Like Ari just mentioned, the length of the workout is very important on whether you need anything in the middle of a workout or not. So if you usually have a workout longer than an hour, getting into 2 hours, that's when you might need to replenish with something simple, something natural, something that is not going to disrupt your GI system. The last thing you want is to take something and you get bloating or gas or anything that's going to disrupt your training. The bottom line is flush it down with water, stay hydrated, and eventually you're going to find what fits you best. In regards to the pre-workout and mid-workout, it's just like game day. After you select what's best for you, you're going to be able to know exactly what suits your needs, what fits you best, so that you can go and compete.
And just piggybacking what Tim said, now's the time during training, weeks, months before competition, to experiment. See what fruits, what snacks works best for you, whether you even need them during your workout, and considering something that's maybe higher in caffeine, such as coffee or tea. Some people react well to it, others don't, because caffeine can dehydrate you. So experiment with different types of liquids, different types of foods, but be very careful that what you're taking into your body doesn't contain an adulterated substance, and we'll touch upon that in just a moment. So you've wrapped up your workout, you're done competing. What's the best thing you can take into your body? Well, you'll notice that the common denominator in all the foods and snacks and liquids you talked about was water. Water is still the best. But if you are a junk food junkie, and hey, we all are allowed to take in a little bit here and there, now's the time actually to have some Coca-Cola or some candy or anything high in sugar and carbohydrates, because after your workout, your muscles are like a sponge. They're looking to absorb any type of glucose, especially high glycemic foods like those loaded in sugar, breakfast cereals, to turn that glucose and replenish those glycogen stores.
Exactly. I'm not a big soda drinker, but getting that sugar carbohydrate into your system will help process and synthesize the protein that will help rebuild your body that you just broke down during your workout. There's many different sources. Protein drinks with a good source of carbohydrate is another option. But if you don't have it, something simple like a can of soda can definitely suit your needs.
We're going to wrap it up and touch upon something that Tim just mentioned, protein shakes, smoothies. There are tons out there. Just because they're out there doesn't mean that they're all healthy. The most important thing to consider if you're an athlete and you compete in drug-tested competitions is to make sure that your protein supplement does not contain any banned substances. I currently serve on the anti-doping review panel of USADA, that's the United States Anti-Doping Agency, and it's amazing how many athletes get popped on tests who unknowingly ingested substances because of a protein supplement or a smoothie. They weren't injecting themselves with steroids or swallowing HGH. They mistakenly took something, hopefully it was a mistake, and it contained a banned substance. So that's tip number 18. Tip number 19 is making sure that whatever protein supplement you take is the right protein for you. There are tons out there, whether it's whey, casein, pea, brown rice, protein. Muscle milk is a favorite amongst a lot of athletes, and the reason why it's so good is that it dissolves very well. And the easiest thing you can do after your workout is to take a little protein, add water, and I always prefer using a fork. It makes it much easier to mix the protein, and you're good to go. And I'm always for convenience. I keep a sleeve of disposable cups and disposable forks in my training bag. I mix up my shake, and I'm good to go. I throw everything away. I don't have to worry about cleaning up a blender when I get home. 25 to 35 grams of protein depending upon your body weight, and generally you don't want to consume more than a gram of protein per pound of body weight. But again, consult with a registered dietitian or a doctor depending upon your needs.
Regarding the protein options, there's several governing bodies that really help prevent you from taking banned substances, and the one that's most common is NSF. Another one is Informed Choice. Those are two companies that make sure that you're not taking banned substances, and you'll see that NSF little label on the products that you take if it is safe to take and zero banned substances. So the bottom line is know what you're putting into your body. If it's not natural food, if it's a supplement, make sure it's safe, make sure it's allowed and effective.
Thanks for attending and viewing the video. I want to thank Tim Robertson from Speed Strength Systems here in Chesterland, Ohio for his time and his facility, along with Steve Chupnick for his videography work, and Chad Zimmerman for directing and producing. If you'd like to get in touch with either Tim or with me, feel free to do so via email or phone number. Take care.
Awesome. That was incredible video. Thanks again, guys. Amazing. All right, I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Mark Bacall, and we'll conduct the Q&A starting now. Mark, you're on mute. Mark, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Let me go start again. First, I want to welcome the entire Sherwin family, because I see that you're all here today. So that's wonderful. And part of our Maccabi family as well. Type in your questions as you started doing now, but I'm going to start off with one. As a physician, I get asked quite often, especially with kids, about weightlifting and weight training and what's safe. And I usually go with a pretty generic answer that because they ask about how often and how much weight. If you can do 10 to 15 reps of something, it's probably a pretty safe exercise. And I kind of stick with that. So I'll start with that question for either Ari or Tim to respond to.
Sure, I'm happy to lead off, and please, Tim, chime in after I'm finished. That's a fantastic lead-off question. So this video was produced with all athletes in mind. This is applicable to all genders, all ages, whether you're 8 years old or 80 years old. And I'll go back to the two individuals I referenced in the video when I was demonstrating the Romanian deadlifts. When I met with the actual Romanian Olympians, Nicu Vlad and Dragomir Soroslin, I was able to train with them multiple times. And it took me about a month to figure out what they were saying with respect to one word. When they kept on emphasizing technique, 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 I didn't know if it was a Romanian word for a joint or a muscle, they were articulating the first syllable, saying technique. Technique is most important, not just with the Romanian deadlift, but with any exercise. It's imperative that you do it properly before you even start worrying about adding weight. And a lot of people for years say, don't do squats, they're not good for your knees. Or don't do lunges, they're bad for your lower back. Or don't do Olympic weightlifting until you're 15 because it will set your growth. Totally incorrect. As long as you emphasize good technique, and Mark, as you said, a good rule of thumb to ensure that you don't overdo it is to handle a weight that you can do, at least initially when you start training, that you can do for 10 to 15 repetitions. That's perfect. And slowly add weight as long as you're not jeopardizing technique. Tim, you want to add anything to that?
With my business, Speed Strength, we deal with a lot of individuals from 8-year-olds all the way up to 70, 80-year-olds. And I think what's very important is you have to understand each individual on an individual basis. There's not one way for everybody. So we follow the guidelines through the National Strength and Conditioning Association and United States Weightlifting Federation Association. And basically, you have to understand the body, and in other words, you have to seek out a qualified individual who understands the body, understands the science behind the body. When we're working with different degrees of individuals with different situations going on, we make sure that their joint is looked at, and if they have bad knees or bad hips or bad shoulders, we address all those areas and we help them to get the appropriate exercise so they're not going to have any adverse effects. But I agree with you 100%, Ari. The rep range, if you can do something 10 to 15 reps in a safe way, you're good to go, and just follow what your body is telling you. That's another important thing. Listen to what your body's telling you.
Okay. The only thing I really didn't like was that drinking a Coke afterwards, but I guess anything in moderation is okay. I would add to the list, I definitely appreciate you mentioning hydration, coming in with dehydration as one of the issues, and I would just add to your list, rest, proper sleep and rest is also important when you're coming into that athletic event. So one of the questions has to do with stretching. So just general stretching, how much stretching, using an IET band, how would you incorporate that into your stretching, whether pre or post exercise?
Yeah, Tim's the stretching isometric king. I'll defer to him on that. I will just say one thing, that most people emphasize stretching before their workouts. What was important for me, at least, and by the way, I love the comment about sleep. When I was competing, and I was single, so I was able to have some extra time on my hand, I was sleeping anywhere from 10 to 12 hours a day. And I was also training, 3 to 4 hours a day. But when it comes to stretching, you can't ignore stretching after your workout, post-workout. Why? Because it helps the lymph system to rid your body of lactic acid and toxins so you're not as sore. And especially that's the case when you're not taking performance-enhancing drugs. But Tim, please take it away.
Thank you. Back to the sleep. Your number one supplement that you can put in your body is rest, and it's free. Everybody needs it, so make sure you get ample sleep. Okay, number one supplement. With regards to stretching, there's a lot of debate on what is the best way to stretch, or what is right, what is wrong. Typically, before an exercise, we like to implement more of a dynamic movement versus a static, sitting still, holding a stretch. So in other words, we might do a low-level cardio type movement, get on the treadmill, do high knees, butt kicks, just to get some blood flow going, and then incorporate some dynamic stretching like straight leg marches, walking quad pulls, some arm swings. I mean, there's so many different variations. Then once exercise is all completed, that is when, like Ari mentioned, where you can actually sit down and do some static stretching, where you hold a stretch for a certain period of time. To be honest with you, we don't do a lot of that static stretching. We do more of dynamic stretching where you're moving, but also we use other modalities to help with that recovery, and that could include foam rolling. We have a vibration plate that helps reduce those toxins from your body for after exercise. There's just a lot out there with stretching. I know there's not a one answer, and you know, if anybody else wants to add to that, they're more than welcome.
Yeah, I'll throw in there, you know, a lot of the tips. I mean, from all the different strength coaches you work with, and full disclosure, Tim actually trained me when I was playing college football. So we've got a long history together, but that roughly about 10 minutes is typically what you'd want from a time standpoint. But a big thing is, it's not just about getting through that range of motion, but also elevating the heart rate and getting a little bit of a sweat going. So if you think about, you know, boxers before they get in the ring, they talk about they want to get a sweat going. You really want the body to be prepared for activity. So that's an important measure if you've done enough to properly warm up for your workout.
Yeah.
Oh, great point. Hey, Mark?
The next question really, I'm going to put myself in the same category. For those of us that are older, since I don't know the age of the person, and I'm not going to ask you, Ed, what your age is, what's the proper balance between exercises, flexibility, balance, and strength that as you get older you should try to incorporate?
It's a great question. Well, go ahead, Tim, please.
Well, you can add on, but I think it all depends on the individual and what your goal is. Once again, there's not a one answer for really anybody. You have to look at your individual situation, what your goals are. Are there any limitations that you have? But in general, like Chad just mentioned, you want a general warm-up. You want the exercise that you're pursuing, whether it's strength training, a combination of CrossFit or different types of exercises together. There's high intensity exercise. There's weightlifting. But regardless of whatever you're participating in, you always want to finish with a cool down. So I guess you got to ask yourself, what's your time frame? If you have 45 minutes to an hour, probably 30 to 40, 45 minutes of that time is work time, where you're actually lifting weights or doing the nuts and bolts of your exercise. And then prior to that, you have 5 to 10 minute warm up, and then 5 to 10 minute cool down after to get your body cooled down, ready to endure the next thing you're looking to pursue.
I couldn't say that any better. The only thing I would add, and it's only because I was involved in a bone density study when I was at the Olympic Training Center in the late 80s, is that it's even more important for women out there, especially after the age of 40 and after the age of 50, when osteoporosis and various types of osteo diseases and conditions set in. Because when people think of weightlifting, they think of musculature. And actually, as we get older, weightlifting actually helps to increase the bone density and helps our osteocytes, our bone cells, to lay down more layers of bone to prevent against those diseases, or if we're going to get those diseases anyway, to prevent against the adverse effects. We have stronger bones. It's going to take the pressure off of our joints and our muscles that are more susceptible to injury as we get into our 70s and 80s.
And just to go on that, my general philosophy is people don't have a lot of time. So we often incorporate a combination of strength training, where it could be with the bands or a medicine ball or light dumbbells with a cardiovascular movement. So we're sort of getting two areas of focus within a certain time frame. So we're getting a lot bang for your buck with any type of exercise. But you're right, Ari. One of the biggest issues with older people is falling. And the stronger you are, the greater balance and proprioception you have, which can help prevent those falls from happening, which is a huge part of what most trainers will work on.
It's interesting you mentioned about the proprioception, and as you get older, I saw one of those infomercials some device that you hold on to and you step, and it looked like something that would really be helpful, but I can't speak from actually using it. I'm going to try to veer away from questions that deal with specific supplements or vitamins, may cross the medical boundaries, and stick, because there's plenty of other great questions. So one of the questions was about plyometrics, and how do you incorporate plyometrics in, and can that be the mainstay of your routine and workout?
3 words: less is best. A lot of people overdo plyometrics. They're incredibly, they put an incredible amount of force on your joints. If done properly, it's terrific. And as I mentioned, they can actually increase your vertical leap, your explosive power, whether you're in basketball, coming off of the starting blocks, in track, coming off of that front line position in football. But a lot of people overdo it. And Tim, I'm curious about your input here, but at least when I was coaching, again, that was 2-3 decades ago, competing rather, I was told not to do more than 50 to 75 reps in any given session, using the old physics law of when you step up the stairs, when you walk up the staircase, you're usually applying 1.5 to 2 times your body weight. But when you're coming down the staircase, it's 6 to 8 times body weight. So just being very careful about technique. And before I hand it over to Tim, for those of you who need to drop off or have any follow-up questions afterwards, feel free to contact him directly at 440-796-1483. His email was also provided. I'm sure he'd be happy to speak with you. So on that, Tim, go for it.
Yeah, with regards to plyometrics, once again, that's somewhat of a broad term for training. Skipping is a plyometric, jogging is some form of plyometric, all the way up to the box jumps that we did, and it gets even more involved than that. So you have to be very, very careful. I think, like you mentioned, Ari, a lot of people overdo plyometrics. You do not want to make plyometrics into a conditioning type programming emphasis. You need certain rest periods, you need certain control of your intensity and your volume. Typically, when we incorporate plyometrics, whether it's skipping or bounding or broad jumps or box jumps, we have a very strict control of how many reps they're doing. The last thing you want to do is overload. A lot of plyometrics are a nervous system stimulus, so you want to help prevent overloading and excessive stress on the joints. But over a whole training period, you're right, Ari. I don't know the exact standards now off the top of my head, but I think 75 jumps in a whole training period is probably a good starting point, and then you can progress from there based on where you're at in your training cycle. If you're working with a strength coach, they should know what the standards are. But the biggest thing to take away from the plyometric question is be careful. They're very stressful on the joints, the ligaments, and the last thing you want to do is establish or develop some type of tendonitis or some joint pain from doing an excessive amount of jumps or plyometric movements.
Those are excellent answers, and I agree, safety is best. And I would even make an additional comment, not really about plyometrics, but in general training, kind of refers to what you guys said, and has to do with using your sport as part of the training. You said about combining strength and cardio. If you're a soccer player, and you're again, following what your coach tells you, but if you're working out in soccer, if you have a ball at your feet, you could do whatever you're going to be doing, but keep the ball at your feet. You're working on your skill as a player, as well as your conditioning and strengthening.
I love that comment, Mark, and actually trying to simulate your athletic position while you're doing the weight training. So, for example, when I demonstrated the power cleans, if you erased the bar and you saw me doing the actual movement, it would essentially simulate someone going up for a rebound. Or when Tim was demonstrating the ballistic medicine ball tosses, very similar to a football player coming off the line and pushing a guy off, and actually visualizing that while you're doing the underlying physical motion.
I like that. There's a question about yoga and your recommendations or importance of adding yoga into the workout routine and your thoughts about yoga.
Well, I'm not a big yoga person, but I have much respect for yoga. I think there's a place for it in really everybody's repertoire of training. A lot of pro athletes utilize yoga as part of their recovery. I think yoga, there is a strength component to yoga, but I think many athletes look at yoga as a great way to help increase their range of motion, their flexibility. If anybody else wants to add to that, I just don't know a ton about yoga.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Chad, please.
Well, I was going to say, if you do any dynamic stretching, many of those movements take influence from yoga. So if you are familiar with many yoga poses, you'll see a lot of that influence in dynamic movements. So they may not be exactly the same, but certain warrior poses, or when people are doing inchworms at points, they're doing like a downward dog, right? So there's a lot of the positions that you take in yoga that have influenced dynamic warm-ups. So that's already somewhat being incorporated, even if somebody didn't call it yoga when you were doing that.
Exactly. I was going to say, when Tim was demonstrating the isometric wall exercises and floor exercises, a lot of those movements were essentially yoga positioning, just done in a slightly tweaked manner. Perfect.
All right, the next question I really don't understand, so you're going to have to explain it and then answer it. It says, do you recommend LISS or HIIT, or a combination of both, to promote weight loss in your cardio sessions?
And I think the HIIT, that's the high intensity interval training, right, Tim?
Yes. Yeah, I didn't get the first part of the question.
LISS?
LISS. Not familiar with that. High intensity interval training it's basically doing 1 set to 3 sets at a very high volume, high intensity level with little rest period. I think it's a great way if you're looking to lose weight, but you have to look at what your nutrition is, among many other things that are part of that whole equation there. I'm just a big fan. And once again, you have to look at your individual goals, but really any type of exercise is a great way, but it all stems from your nutrition. What you feed yourself and fuel yourself with can help dictate weight loss and everything else.
So LISS is low intensity, steady state cardio. I guess walking would be an example of that.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Obviously, you have to look at your situation. If you're an athlete who's looking to play a certain sport or compete in something, that might not be best versus another way of exercising. I think movement is phenomenal and imperative for really anybody who's looking to lose weight or to be in shape. And I think that's what's beautiful about it. There's so many different options that one person might not like and another might like it in many ways. And that's what the beauty of it is.
Right. There was a question about, is a light set of repetitions of almost exercise with lightweight bad? The example is they try to do 50 good mornings 3 to 5 times a week to loosen up the lower back. Is that too much?
Yeah, I think you can definitely overdo it with the high rep exercises, especially if those exercises are incorporating multiple body movements. I cringe when I go to the gym and I see people doing power cleans with 10, 15, 20 reps. And as each rep progresses, their technique breaks down more and more and more. If it's a simple movement where you're only incorporating 1 or 2 body joints, and again, you're emphasizing great technique, 10, 15, even sometimes 20 reps, I think is fine. But I think it can be overdone. And again, the more body parts, the more muscles, the more joints you incorporate, the lower the rep should be for the most part. And just piggybacking what Tim said before, there's no one size fits all. And I also like this comment about nutrition. when he replied to the yoga comment and a lot of the other exercises. You cannot out exercise a bad diet. And I hate even using the word diet because diet, has the connotation of weight loss. You can't out exercise, a bad nutritional regimen. And the nutrition as we get older is even more important.
So along with diet, I'll just make a comment. As a physician, I don't really look at like to use the word diet, and I don't like to look at the growth chart and show kids what percentiles they are. I really just look at it as making good choices. So if you have a choice of apple juice or water, water. If you have an apple or a cupcake, you choose the apple. If you have a pepper or an apple, you might choose the pepper. But always making good choices. If you can be sitting down or standing up, choose standing up. So if you make good choices all the time, if you can watch TV or read a book, whatever category it goes into, the side effect is the other stuff takes care of itself. Your weight will take care of itself. Your mental status will take care of itself. Everything else that's the side effect. That's not the objective. The objective is just keep making good choices throughout the day. I think that's a helpful suggestion.
Absolutely. Actually, now you got me fired up. Just like you get to Carnegie Hall through practice, forget about the actual athletic competition. The way you even get there is through preparation. And when it comes to nutrition, pre-COVID, when I went into work, and I've been doing this for years, every Monday morning, I take in a knapsack full of yogurts, fruits, nuts, and I keep them at my desk because when the donuts come in to the office, I'm the first one who would grab one. But if I know, and if I have that fruit and the yogurt and those other healthy snacks in my office, I'm less likely to indulge. And going back to your Coca-Cola comment, Mark, I appreciate that. My only suggestion there was, hey, if we do take an occasional, junk food in during the day, the best time to do it would be right after the workout.
Perfect. There's another one more question here. What are your thoughts on the cryogenic or cold recovery?
So I'll throw something in there. I mean, if you're referring to, the cryo tanks, right, where people are going into the super frigid air and all of that, I won't comment to that. But the idea of after a workout using ice or going into an ice bath, there's a lot of good science that if you've been putting stress on your joints, on certain muscles, that icing can be helpful for reducing inflammation and helping you recover. There's some folks who like to do contrasting. They'll get in the shower afterwards and turn water hot and cold, which helps stimulate blood flow to help get toxins out or blood flow in to help repair things after a workout. So those sorts of things, there's pretty good science behind. I have not researched the cold air cryo tanks. So I don't know, Ari, if you or Tim have, but certainly using ice as a recovery technique or ice baths is certainly pretty founded.
Yeah, again, you got to experiment, and the time to do so is before competition or before you get hurt. Some people respond very well to ice. Most people do, especially within the first 24 to 36 hours after an intense workout or a slight injury. Others within 24 or 36, they do just what Chad said. They alternate between ice packs and jumping in a hot bath 5 to 10 minutes at a time. And obviously, if you have that allotment even available, or using a heating pad for 5 minutes and an ice pack back and forth while you're sitting in front of Netflix. Other people also fail to recognize the importance of not just laying the ice on your body joint, but using a wrap, because that compression is very important. The acronym that a lot of people are familiar with, RICE, R-I-C-E, resting, using ice, compression, and elevating whatever body part it is that you're isolating above your heart is important. But like Chad said, most of all, if you're using ice or heat or whatever method you think works best for you, do it as often as possible.
That's it on the questions that have come in, and you guys had fantastic answers to all of them, so that's wonderful. If anyone has a last minute question, wants to sneak it in, they certainly can. But otherwise, we've done a great hour.
Great. No, Mark, thanks so much for coordinating, Steve for putting this together, and of course, Tim, Chad, and Steve for all of your work behind the video. Really appreciate it. And to all the viewers for viewing and joining us.
Thanks again, guys. Really appreciate Ari for taking the lead on this and really, putting this into motion. But of course, want to recognize Tim, Chad, and Steve for all of your dedication, hard work, and appreciation putting this video together. The four of you, it was an amazing production. Thanks again. And I want to thank Dr. Mark McCall for moderating and helping with this as well. I'll leave it for Ari, Tim, Chad, Steve, if you have any final words or anything else you want to say before we wrap up. But before I hang up the call, I just want to encourage everybody here to continue looking out for future Maccabi at Home programming. Our next Zoom call will be Thursday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's our reoccurring segment with President Jeff Buchantz. He's going to be interviewing the last 3 presidents of the organization. That's going to be Ron Karner, Tony Wortman, and Bob Spivak on the evolution of Maccabi USA and their successes and challenges leading the organization. So unless anybody has any other questions, or Mark, Tim, Ari, Chad, Steve, any final words, thanks again, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.